Hi, my name is Sam Haynes. I'm a multimedia artist based in London, and I make and photograph abstract geometric sculptural assemblages using found objects and materials. I come from an interdisciplinary arts background rather than a fine arts background. So I started out by doing performance art and sculpture, and then majoring in sculpture. And I then went on to do a master's degree in art and architecture. So right at the beginning of my practice, I was making large-scale, site-specific public artworks, often engaging local communities as well. I then went on to start working on more temporary work and raising my own funding and working with different creatives, from musicians and writers. But I think all of that kind of journey feeds into my style now. So I've also kind of brought that architectural language as well with me a little bit, and the kind of performance kind of roots as well. I think it's all in there, and it's what creates my style today. It's the materials and objects that inspire me primarily, and I find they're all found objects and materials, whether I find them on the street or in charity shops or local businesses. But yeah, it's kind of exploring the dynamic connections between those materials, and I try and start with an open mind. So it's slightly, when I was working on public art, I'd always have some sort of brief to work with, but now the object is my kind of brief, it's my starting point. So in effect, I never have to kind of face a blank page. There's always something to respond to, which I really enjoy. I mean, other themes that come out, but in a very intuitive way, are themes of containment and control sometimes, and balance and counterbalance is often evident in my work. But my process is very material led. Since the beginning of lockdown in 2020, I started using photography much more. So before then, I'd used photography to document my work, but from 2020, I started using it within the process much more as well. So I started making small scale assemblages, and I would go between, and I still go between the two different media. So I, play with the materials, I photograph it, I go back and play with the materials some more, and I photograph it. And I find the photography is a really good way of looking at the materials more closely, of getting to know them better in a certain way. You also can get an idea of composition much better, I find. But it's those two media working together. So it's not just the fact that I'm making a sculpture and I'm photographing at the end, and I'm thinking the photograph is a useful way of sharing that piece of artwork. Like I say, those two, the two media really kind of interlink and work together. And I find that a really useful way of working. Community engagement has always been at the heart of my practice. So right from the beginning, starting out doing public art, I kind of shied away from the gallery space right at the beginning of my practice, really, because I felt I was a people person and I wanted to be out there connecting with people, which still is a very important part of my practice. But I've been, for many years now, working with often marginalised communities, and it's all about making art accessible to people of all ages and all abilities. So that's both in the kind of processes that we use, as well as the materials. and I think that's very kind of strong in my practice now. Yeah, and I think that's, you know, it remains kind of very important to me, a central part of my work, definitely. I don't specifically start out with any meaning or necessarily kind of ideas in my head. I like to, like I say, come to the process with as open and as kind of clear a mind, empty a mind as possible. So it's experiencing those materials in the moment. I mean, the only time where I sometimes might come with some sort of themes in mind is when kind of major things are happening in the world or in my life, like COVID, and then I feel the need to kind of express what's going on through the materials in some way. But otherwise, it's like I say, it's process and material led, and it's only when I get to the point where I start titling the work, which is, you know, when I stand back and really look at it. And then sometimes I see things in there that are really evident what's going on in the work, or the themes that are there, but I never really realised them during the process. So that can be really surprising to me, which I enjoy. But also people, you know, whatever meaning I give the artwork, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's other people's meanings. So I love it when people come to me and they say, oh, we can see this and we can see that, and I might never have, you know, it might never have occurred to me what they've seen in it. So it's just about, I think the title is a really useful way of leading people into the work, and hopefully as well, you know, it's making it kind of user friendly and more accessible to people. I think primarily I make work to connect with people, and it's always been about making connections. I mean, today connecting with artists all over the world has been, yeah, really important to me, as well as connecting to the wider community. It's a language, you know, that can go beyond, you know, it doesn't matter what part of the world you come from, or, you know, what language you actually use. The kind of creative language is one that can overcome barriers. So I think, you know, that's really important. I mean, it's also, though, it's also a dialogue, a personal dialogue. It's a way of kind of challenging myself. It's a way of connecting with the physical world and understanding that physical world in different ways. It's you know, so many different things really are important to me, but I think really it's all about celebrating life, and I think that's why I make work. Later this year, I've got my first solo show, so I'm working towards, in September, having a show in a gallery called the Bloom Gallery, which is actually part of a mental health arts charity called Sam Haynes that I work at as an artist facilitator and tutor in their studio, and I'm going to be displaying photography alongside sculptures that I've been working on this year, and possibly also some sort of site-specific elements in some way. I'm actually, some of the materials that I've used come from the aluminium light reflector panels. The gallery's recently been renovated and they were taken out of from the ceiling, from the lighting. So I saw an opportunity there, and the material really interested me. So I've got photography and sculptures that use that material, that will be, yeah, exhibited along other pieces of work as well that I've made over the last couple of years. But if you're in Battersea, yes, in London, on the 20th, hopefully opening on the 20th of September, yeah, it would be lovely to see you, to meet you. But if you're not there, I hope you enjoy my work, and it's been great to connect.